Every time I wear like baggy jeans and the tank top, I feel like Channing Tatum. Hi, I'm Maurice, and if you didn't know, I like to read. I decided that I want to do book content videos like at least once a month, just because it's a way for me to read more, and also I like books. Might as well. I used to read a lot in high school. Every Friday I'd go to Indigo, buy a book, and then Saturday, Sunday I'd read it, and then the entire week I look for a new book, and then on Friday I go to Indigo, I buy it, and just a cycle. But ever since I started CJEP and uni, I didn't really have time to read books anymore. Yeah, this is like a way for me to read books. Also, I have like no one to talk to about books, so we're just gonna... Today, I only have a tutorial, so I'm gonna read. And also, I thought, why not show you my bookshelf? My bookshelves are from IKEA. They're not the Billy bookshelves. I can't remember their names. If I figure it out, I'll write it down. But originally, these were my sister's bookshelves because my sister and I, we used to share a room. And so one shelf was for her, one shelf was for me, and mine just overflowed. I had no more space. Because I moved into my brother's old room, I needed my own bookshelves. The room is pretty small. I don't know if you noticed, but the room is small. And so I couldn't get the Billies because I didn't have anywhere to put them because I needed at least 2 shelves. So we'll start at the top. I have my film camera, which is a Minolta Maxim 3000i. Got this from my parents. I don't really know where they got it from. I think they said it was someone gave it to them. And then I have my snowboarding helmet. I like to keep it in the box just because I don't want it to get scratched up, because knowing me, I'll probably end up scratched. Like, it's already scratched. The first day I used it, it's scratched. And right next to it at the top, I have my... What are those called? Orchids. Oh my god, orchids. I have my Lego orchids that I got for Christmas from my sister, so thank you, Ate. And then right in front of it, I have this bobblehead of Scooby-Doo that my sister gave me. A baby rubber duck. Yes. And then I have this like toy sorting hat thing that my brother got for my birthday. I'm a Hufflepuff. Just thought I'd share. And then in the corner, I have my 2 grad caps. I have one from my high school graduation and then one from my CJEP graduation. I tried to organize my bookshelves in a way that would make sense, but it doesn't really make sense. It makes sense to me. So how it's separated, I have up here the mangas. Mangas. It has to be mangas. Right next to it, I have my K-pop albums. Below them on the left, I have the adult books that aren't necessarily fantasy, but some are fantasy / school books. Yes. And then right next to it, I have the adult fantasy books. And then below that is my Sarah J. Maas shelves. She used to be my favorite author. She kind of is still. I acknowledge that her content is questionable, but Throne of Glass was the series that got me into reading, and so it just stuck. And then below that, I have my YA. I'm a big fantasy reader, and so I only own fantasy in YA at least. And then at the very bottom on the left, I have like random books, and I also have my snowboarding glasses on there. On the right, I have the middle grade books. So for the mangas, I have some Junji Ito's. I have Tomi Uzumaki and No One Human. Uzumaki was like, it freaked me out. I was really freaked. Prior to reading this, I hate snails. I hate them. I guess not disgusting. I guess they have their, purpose in the ecosystem, yada yada yada. But I hate snails. Like snails, slugs, ugh. I hate them. This made it worse. It made it so much worse. I hate snails. Ugh. I have volume 1 of My Hero Academia, and then I have a volume 1 of Rose Girl and Black Prince, and then volume 1 of Vampire Knight. They're in French. This was like my peak anime phase, so like primary school. I have an Attack on Titan box set. I have part 1 of season 1, so volumes 1 through 4. I want to read the series because I only watch the series. I started watching it in the 6th grade. It's my favorite anime of all time. I remember watching in 6th grade with my pink iPod touch with my like panda case, watching it in like my old apartment. I loved it so much. Like in elementary school, I used to eat at home for lunch, so I'd watch it before school during my lunch break and then after like the same episode, because it was still a weekly, like season 1 had just started streaming, I guess, and I would just watch the same episode over and over. So good. But yeah, I haven't read it. I want to finish the anime first, just because that's how I started the series. And then I have this random photo album book that has no pictures in it. I bought it in Korea. I was gonna put all my film photos that I took in Korea, but I haven't had time to actually print those out. So I might do that in the summer when I have time. I have a little like jar with sand from the Haeundae beach in Busan. Yeah, so that's the first shelf. On the right, we're gonna go to the K-pop shelf. So I have, of course, the BTS albums. I have Proof, Young Forever, B, Map of the Soul Persona, Love Yourself, Her, and Love Yourself Tear. And then I have a 17 album. I have the 17 first album, Love and Letter version. And then I have 2 Astro albums, like their first mini album and then their second one. And then I have a Yuna album from Girls' Generation, A Walk to Remember. And then I have my Taeyeon albums. I have My Voice Deluxe Edition, and then the Purpose album. And then I have Jonghyun's Poet Artist album. And then right next to it, I keep the jewelry that are not my everyday jewelry, but jewelry that I would wear. And then on top of it, I just put the standee that I got from the Love Yourself Tear album. Dude, K-pop albums in Korea are so cheap. Like, I forget that in South Korea, K-pop is targeted towards the younger generation, like kids. I remember going into the album store near the Airbnb in Hongdae, and it was just like elementary school kids going, and even in like the bookstores where they also sell albums, like it was just kids going and buying. So I forget, because here the prices are so expensive. Like, not even just buying online. Now there's, I think, 2 stores here in Montreal that sell K-pop albums, also in Walmart. So expensive. I remember the Taeyeon's I album was the first album I bought myself, and this was when the first K-pop store in Montreal opened, like the first day I went straight after school. And I think it was like 30, almost 40, and I remember being like, whoa, it's so expensive. And now I remember going to Walmart and seeing the Proof album, $90? No. So if we start with the what did I call it? The adult books that are not fantasy but still have fantasy / bookshelf. Here I have Trixie and Katya's Guide to Modern Womanhood. I love Trixie and Katya, they're so much fun. And then I have these 3 books here that I've had to read for school. These books I had to read for CJEP. So I have Learning to Peer Tutor, because my last English class that I needed to take, I decided to be a tutor. And then I have Margaret Atwood's Survival. It's my first Margaret Atwood book. Pretty good, very insightful to Canadian art in general. And then I have Trois by Mani Soleimonu. And then I have the first memoir that I ever read, which was Know My Name by Chanel Miller. It is so good. So like, I don't ever annotate my books unless it's for school. Look at this bad boy. Look at it. Look at it. It's wow. Like, she's annotated. And because of this book, I've been like looking at memoirs, which is so much fun. And then I have The Divine Comedy by Dante. I bought this book for an art project in CJEP because I needed sources, and I had to read it again for a uni class. I've read it, I think, a total now of like 3 times. I still don't like it. And then I have The Power of the Dog by Thomas Savage. I read this in Korea, actually on the train to Busan. Ooh. And then I have In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. And then I have my Murakamis. I have 1Q84 and Norwegian Wood. From reading these 2 books, I've deducted that Murakami likes to write about mentally ill women. Don't know what that's about, but okay. I don't know why, but I forgot to say I also have A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. Yeah, and I'm sure you know what this book is about, so I'm not gonna, no comment. And then I have American Psycho by Bret Easton Ellis. I didn't watch the movie prior to reading this book, so I have no clue what it was about. And then afterwards, I watched the movie, and I wish I didn't see it. Okay, I guess like controversial opinion. I was kind of on the side of Patrick Bateman. Listen. That's not crazy. Reading the book and seeing how other people were interacting with him, I was like, dude, these people suck. Like, they're so full of themselves. And what was annoying was that like Patrick Bateman would literally say it to their face. I was like, hey, I'm gonna kill you. And they didn't listen because they just kept talking about themselves. And you know, I was like, you know what? I'm not mad. I'm not mad that Patrick did what he did. I'm not crazy. And then I have The Sailor Who Fell from Grace with the Sea by Yukio Mishima. And then I have Lolita by Nabokov. And Lolita was a book that was fun to read, but not fun to read. Because it's written in the man's perspective. It was a very interesting point of view to take while reading this type of story. Because I don't know if you know what Lolita is, but it's essentially he's a predator. It was fun to read because it's so well written in the sense that if you've ever watched Captain Fantastic, there's a scene where one of the kids are reading this book and she says that the book is so well written. It's like the character is so in love, but that's controversial because you know he's in love with a child. But the way that this book is written does exactly that. Like you forget, ooh, this is dangerous territory. It was such a interesting way of using writing to manipulate the readers. Yes. And then I have Minor Feelings by Kathy Park Hong. The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. I have Everyday Ethics by Joshua Halberstam. I have the Le Figuier Enchanté by Marco Migon. Last semester I took a medieval English class and one of the books we had to read was The Consolation of Philosophy by Boethius. Surprisingly, I really liked it, especially the conclusion they had about free will in a time where religion and God was a big thing. I have Le Comte de Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas, and then I have Devotion by Patti Smith. It was a pretty good book too. I used this as an inspiration for a sound assignment. And then right next to it, I have this McLaren car. It's the McLaren P1 car. It says McLaren P1 KT5393 scale 1/36. And then I have these two crystals. I got them as a gift. I don't really know what to do with them. I don't know what these do. It's just here. Yes. So these are the adult books that are not fantasy but still contain fantasy/school books. And then we have the adult books that are fantasy books. I have some J. Kristoff's, I have Empire of the Vampire and Nevernight. I wasn't expecting much, but this was my best read of 2021. It was so good. I didn't expect it to be that good. And I fell in love with this book with the first line. I remember what the first line was. The first line is, ask me not if God exists, but why he's such a prick. And then I have the Poppy War trilogy by R.F. When I tell you that I never give 5 stars to any books, well, very rarely do I give 5 stars, and I have like 11 out of 97 that are 5 stars. These 3, 5 stars. So 3 out of the 11 is one trilogy. It's so good. It's so good. And then I have The Tiger and the Wolf by Adrian Tchaikovsky. And then I have the first book of Game of Thrones. And then I have An Eden Light, my favorite war criminal. Behind I have this fan that I got from South Korea because it was super hot and I couldn't live. And then I have this little plate of my daily jewelry. So I keep it there and I keep it right in front of my meds section just so I don't forget to do either or. Because I hate when I leave the house and I'm not wearing jewelry because it bothers my head. I need it to like fidget. So if I need it to fidget, I go here and I'm like, oh, my meds. Also, I keep my glasses here too. And here is the Sarah J. Maas shelf. On this one, I have the Throne of Glass series. I do not own Assassin's Blade. Here's why I do not own Assassin's Blade, which is the prequel to the series. Assassin's Blade would give insight on like a few characters that show up afterwards and also some decisions that the protagonist made. But you know, I read it through, I wasn't really confused, so it's fine. And I refuse to read it because if Throne of Glass starts out with the protagonist in a bad place, then obviously Assassin's Blade ends in a bad place, you know? And I already know, I know what happens, I know who's in that book. I don't want to read it. I don't want to be sad. I just don't want to read it. So like, if I have it, cool. If someone gives it to me, amazing. Thank you. But I will not read it. I refuse. I will not read it. I have the Embers of Memory, which is the game. I got it as a gift, so thank you, Nikki. And then I have the Throne of Glass Collector's Edition. And I have the Avatar series. I read this in like peak pandemic. I bought all 3 at once. I'm not the biggest fan of the protagonist. I prefer Aelin from Eternal Glass. The character I like is Nesta, and I know people don't like Nesta, but I like Nesta, so it was like okay. I like the characters in these books, but I'm not the biggest fan of the plot. So honestly, at this point, I just read it for the people. A Court of Silver Flames. I was excited just because it was about Nesta, but I wish, you know, there was more Nesta. I have my MIDI keyboard. I store it here because this used to be on my desk, but if it's on my desk, it takes up a lot of space and I can't really work on my desk. I can't like work at my desk with like notebooks and papers, so I just keep it here because I don't know where to put it. The Crescent City series, I have House of Earth and Blood and House of Sky and Breath. I loved the first book. It was so good. This one. I don't like this one. I was so excited for this book because the first one was so good. I was really disappointed. I remember being so excited for this, pre-ordering it. I have a poster of it. I don't like it. I don't like it. This, if I remember, it's like 800 pages. Honestly, it felt like this entire book could have been condensed into like 300 pages because it felt like 500 pages of nothing. The problem in this entire book was fixed by a protagonist behind everyone else's back, and it was mentioned for like 2 pages. And I was like, whoa, what? They were doing so much yet nothing at the same time. I was this close to not continuing this series, but the last sentence, I'm not gonna say it because it was such a big, the very last sentence of the entire book. Wow, you're gonna pull that, so now I really have to read the next one. Here I keep like my school stuff. I have my laptop, my folder for my elective, and then I have this course pack which was from last semester, and I stored it away, but I needed like some of the text for a research paper I'm doing right now. And then I have my notebook for like studying. My bookshelf has a system in the sense that all the books that are standing up, that means I've read them, and the books that are laying down means I haven't read them. So I have 3 books that I haven't read. Pure Nisi, and then I have Leaves of Grass by Walt Whitman. I got it as a gift, so thank you, Yuli. And then I have Clash of Kings. I got to page 31. I just never picked it up because it's hard. It took me, I think, 2 months to get through the first Game of Thrones. Now we go down to the YA section, which is basically fantasy except for 1 book. Actually, except for 2. The left side, I have the Folk of Air. Is that what it's called? The Folk of Air series? Is that what it's called? No, that's not what it's called. But it's the Cruel Prince trilogy thing. And then I have To Kill a Kingdom, Shadow and Bone, Caraval, Falling Kingdoms, and then I have Matched, Graceling by Kristen Cashore. The first 2 books in the, is it Lost Kingdom? I feel like that's what it's called. Sabriel and Lyriel by Garth Nix. And then I have The Hobbit, the Serpent and Dove trilogy. This one was a gift from Ate's best friend, so thank you, Atelina. I have books by Adrian Young. I have Sky and the Deep, Fable and Namesake, 6 Crimson Cranes by Elizabeth Lim, The Valiant by Leslie Livingston, 5 Wilder Girls by Rory Power, Tempest Rising, Ash Lords by Scott Reitgen, and then I have Shine by Jessica Jung, The Beast Player by Nahoko Uehashi, translated by Kathy Hirano, Warrior of the Wild by Trisha Levenseller, The Duology, Dance of Thieves, and Bow of Thieves. Yeah, so those are all the like YA fantasy except for like 2-3 books. The last part on my bookshelf is the middle grades of Brothers Grimm complete fairy tale book, which I got from Costco. And then I have the first book from The School of Good and Evil by Soman Chainani. I think I got this in the 4th grade. My sister got it for me. And then I have 2 Diary of a Wimpy Kids. I got, why is 8 before 7? Why did I do that? I have 7 and 8. And then I have the Diary of a Wimpy Kid one, the one that you wrote yourself. It's in French. And I didn't actually finish this, but one of my friends in the 4th grade, like someone had this, I don't remember who it was, and I really wanted to have one. We couldn't afford it, and she was kind enough to gift one to me. I can't remember, was it a Christmas or was it a birthday? I don't know, but yeah, it was really sweet of her. Dang, this is how I used to write. A wreck this journal that I'm too scared to wreck because I have this thing where if it's a book, I don't want to wreck it. which is so dumb because this is the whole point. I have my Geronimo Stiltons and Thea Stilton, Le Royaume du Bonheur, the like fantasy series. I've always wanted these books, but they were pretty expensive, and so I was never able to get them. And one day we ran into my godfather in Costco, and it was almost Christmas time, and he's like, okay, what do you want for Christmas? And I took my chance. I was like, this one please. And he's like, you want a book? I was like, yes. So I got a book, so thank you, Nino. So my Geronimo Stilton book is in French, and my Thea Stilton books are in English. And then I have like these random Disney books. I have the two Eolia Princesse de Lumière book, the Percy Jackson books, which I read in high school, like for the first time. I have Neil Gaiman books. I have the Graveyard book and The Ocean at the End of the Lane. And then I have a graphic novel, American Born Chinese by Jean Wen-Yang. Yeah. That's my bookshelf. Probably will grow. So I still have like 3-4 hours before I have to go to school. So in the meantime, I'm going to read this. Piranesi. I'm going to read, and I have to charge my phone because it's about to die. So I can't film me reading, but this is what I'm going to look like. Imagine.